Good morning, everyone. Before I begin the service proper with a chant and then the talk, let me first say that this is experimental. And so I brought my cell phone only to check to make sure that we are actually live and that it's actually possible to hear what I'm saying. So just a moment, please bear with me while we check and see what's going on here. Live here. Yes. Live here. Yes. Live. Okay, so it looks like it's working, and hopefully it will keep working. And I will turn this off so that I don't get phone calls. And so before I begin with the chat and begin with the lecture, let me first just talk to you for a moment. Again, this is an experiment. We've been live streaming for a couple of years now, but this is the first time that I'm doing it by myself. And so usually Jiten Patel or Anil Rode or Jagadish or Surendra Sogi, they are here to take care of the live streaming. But because of the pandemic and because I'm under quarantine, having come from India recently, a few days ago, we thought it better that people, not even a technician, come to take care of the video and live streaming. So I'm doing it on my own. Hopefully everything will go well, but I can already tell that the sound is too loud. So let me excuse myself, go over here to turn down the sound, and then I'll be right back. Now, let's see, that's a little better. It's not producing as much echo. Hopefully on the live stream, the sound is all right, but at least in here, it's okay, which is, of course, the less important of the two. So let me begin with the chant as usual, and then we will be underway. Om Asato Ma Sadgamaya Tamaso Ma Jyotirgamaya Mrityor Ma Mritam Gamaya Aviravir Maedhi Rudrayate Dakshinam Mukham Tena mam bhahi nityam, tena mam bhahi nityam. Lead us from the unreal to the real. Lead us from darkness unto light. Lead us from death to immortality. Reach us through and through ourself, O Lord, and protect us evermore from ignorance by thy sweet, compassionate face. Om Vishnur va Tripurantako bhavatu va Brahma Surendrotha va Bhanur va Shashalakshanota Bhagavan Buddhota Siddhota va Ragadvesha Visharti Moharahita Sattvanukampodyato Yasarve Sahasamskrito Gunaganais Tasmai Namah Sarvada. The Supreme Reality and its messengers are known by various names in various traditions. But as for me, I offer my worship always to the one going by any name and belonging to any tradition, who is free from attachment and hatred, free from worldliness and delusion, who is filled with compassion towards all living beings, and who is possessed of all noble virtues. Om Sarve Bhavantu Sukhina, Sarve Santu Niramayaha, Sarve Bhadrani Pashyantu, Ma Kaschid Dukkha Bhag Bhavet. May all beings everywhere be happy. May all be freed from disease. May all see that which is auspicious. May none be subject to misery. Om Shanti 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 Hari Om Tat Sat. Om peace, peace, peace be unto us all. So the topic this morning is trials, tribulations, and opportunities. Except for the last word in the title, it's rather a grim title, Trials and Tribulations, but that's what many of us are going through now. Many people are going through. And some of us are fortunate, but in our good fortune that our suffering is minimal, we shouldn't feel that, oh, God has blessed me. What about the many people who are suffering? We should feel for them and not gloat if we feel that we are fortunate. Yes, we can be glad that we're fortunate. We can thank God, thank the stars, thank the universe that we are fortunate so far. But we should, in that feeling of thanksgiving, we should also think for the welfare of others and those who are not so fortunate. So let me say at the beginning a word about the prayers that I said. The first two, all three of them are familiar to many of you, perhaps most of you. The first one, Asato ma sadgamaya, tamaso ma jyotirgamaya, etc. Lead us from the unreal to the real. Lead us from darkness unto light. Lead us from death to immortality. Yes, today is Easter, a very holy day in the Christian world, and therefore a holy day to all of us. In the Hindu tradition, we accept these spiritual truths within all religious traditions. We may not agree with them on every detail of doctrine, dogma, etc., but we accept the spiritual truth in all religious traditions. And so the Easter being a holy day for the Christians, it's a holy day for us as well. And so the message of Easter is the message of immortality. So we begin with a prayer that we be led from the unreal to the real. Unreal means here all the changing things in our experience. Samsara is the world of change. And so lead us from samsara to the land where there is no night. And so then where there is no change. And lead us from darkness unto light. Lead us to the land where there is no darkness. And here, of course, I'm speaking figuratively from a Hindu standpoint, from a Vedantic Hindu standpoint. We don't seek to go to an actual land, to a paradise, to a place where we have a family reunion and we eat all we want without getting indigestion and so forth. No, we speak figuratively of a land where there is no darkness. That is a state of experience which is beyond all states, which is reality itself, which is light itself, which is bliss itself, which is knowledge itself, which is awareness itself, which is transcendence itself. And so lead us from the unreal, these changing phenomena where we try to grasp things, but everything gets out of our grasp, to the real, that which is absolutely real. Lead us from darkness, this world of darkness where we know our knowledge is very small, our ignorance is vast. And the greater the person, the more they realize that. Einstein, Sir Isaac Newton, and others, great scientists, great minds, they realized just how little they knew and how insignificant that little was. In the vast ocean of infinite knowledge, how little it was that they understood. So lead us from darkness to light, and lead us from death to immortality. This life of experience where every moment we're dying, every moment of change is a death. And then there comes the big change of death of the body, when all that we know, all that we've possessed, all that we've loved, all that we are familiar with, everything is taken away in a moment. So lead us from this world where death hovers over us to immortality. Not immortality of the body, but immortality of the spirit. And so that is a very good prayer for Easter. I'm not going to speak about Easter and its message today, but I did want to mention it because it is a very holy occasion in the Christian world, and again, therefore, for us as well. And then the prayer that, the second, which is not really a prayer, but a statement of conviction. That the reality is, the supreme reality and its messengers are known by various names in various traditions. But as for me, I offer my worship always to the one going by any name and belonging to any tradition, who is free from attachment and hatred, free from worldliness and delusion, who is filled with compassion towards all living beings without exception, and who is possessed of all noble virtues. That is really a statement of the essence of Hindu Dharma, the religion of the Hindus, the religion, and therefore the religion of Vedanta, which we follow. That is, that the essence of religion is, as Swami Vivekananda said, being and becoming. This expansive vision where religion doesn't lie in temples, it doesn't lie in rituals, it doesn't lie in mythology, it doesn't lie in history, it doesn't lie in beliefs and dogmas and doctrines and philosophies and so forth. All of those have their place. But their place is secondary, because what's important is who we are and who we are becoming. That is the essence of spirituality in every soul, and how that is being manifested. That's the essence of religion. That's what we want. That's what we seek. And so at times like this, which I'm going to come to now in just a moment, at times like this of worldwide suffering and fear, insecurity, let us remember that in everything that we do, the most important thing is manifesting that essence of our spiritual being, which is the absence of attachment and hatred, the absence of worldliness and delusion, the feeling of compassion towards all living beings, and the development of all noble virtues. That is the whole of religion. Everything else, as Swami Vivekananda said, everything else is secondary detail. And so then we come to the last prayer, which is very, very familiar in the Hindu religious world. Sarve bhavantu sukhina. May all beings be happy. Sarve santu niramayaha. May all be freed from disease. Sarve bhadrani pashyantu. May all see that which is noble and auspicious. Ma kaschid dukkha bhag bhavet. May all be freed from misfortune. And so the question comes, in this relative world, is it possible for everyone to be happy? Oh no, we see that that's not possible. So some people are happy some of the time, other people, but no one is happy all of the time. And that there's no time in the history of the world when everybody has been happy. In fact, sometimes one person's happiness is the cause of another person's misery. And so why pray for the happiness of all when it's not even possible? May all be freed from disease. Is that ever possible? No, that's not possible. You remember the story of the Buddha, when the woman came to him with her dead child, and she asked the Buddha to please bring her child back to life. And so the Buddha, instead of hurting her further by saying, no, that's not possible, he asked her, you first go to a house and ask from any house that they give you some mustard seed, but it has to be a house where there has been no death, no bereavement. So she went to house after house, and everyone said, well, no, we can give you mustard seed, but here we lost so-and-so. We lost a father, we lost a mother, we lost a grandparent, we lost a child. Finally, she realized that death is all pervasive. Everywhere there's death. And then she was able to come to the Buddha and say, now I've understood. And to universalize her own suffering and to see that that was part of the law of life. And so, sarve santu niramayaha, may all be freed from disease. Is it possible? No. No, it's not possible. Sarve bhadrani pashyantu. May all see that which is noble and auspicious. That's theoretically possible, but it doesn't happen because people want to see that which is ignoble, that which is which lowers the mind and degrades the heart. And then ma kastid dukkha bhag bhavet. May none be subject to misery. That also, of course, is not possible. There are people who are suffering misery at all times. There are people in various conditions. Some are happy, some are unhappy. So then why even pray this? Why make such what appears to be a hypocritical prayer when it's not even possible? Why ask for it? Because it's a natural response of the human heart to the suffering of others. If we see sufferings of others, it's a noble motive to try to remove the sufferings of others. So we have to note two contradictory things. One is that we can't remove the sufferings of the whole world because that's part of life itself. But at the same time, when we see suffering in front of us, we should step in and try to alleviate that suffering as far as it is within our power, because that itself ennobles us. And it may help others as well, and it certainly helps us. And so therefore we are taught that we should be thankful to the person who allows us to help, because whether they are helped or not, we don't know, we can't know, but we know that we are helped. And so our gratitude is to them who allow us to try to help. And so we pray, Sarve bhavantu sukhina, may all beings be happy, etc., because it's a ennobling aspiration. It purifies our mind, it purifies our bodies, even to think such noble thoughts that may all beings be freed from misery. Yes, that it may not be possible in samsara that everybody at one time be freed from all misery, but the aspiration itself is noble. So, again, trials, tribulations, and opportunities. There's no need to tell anyone that right now there are many people who are suffering, many people suffering. And so when I come to the opportunities part, I don't want to speak glibly about that, because there are many people who are suffering. And so first we have to recognize that. And so that's why I put trials, tribulations first, and then opportunities. First, to recognize the sufferings that many people are having. For instance, of course, some people are ill. Of course, there's always illness, but right now there's the virus which is making many people ill, which is stressing our medical infrastructure here in the States and in some other countries. There's the lockdown, which causes the isolation of people and hence the loneliness of people. There's also the factor We make jokes about it, and there are funny aspects to it, but there's also the serious aspect that this lockdown means that we have to be with the same people almost 24 hours a day. When we're used to getting out of the house or out of the temple, out of the community, and going and meeting other people, doing various things, engaging in different things, going to the gym, going to work, to the office, and rubbing shoulders with different people, getting stimulated by different people. Now we are caught at home with the same people whom hopefully we love, people whom we naturally love, our own people, but then we're with them all of the time. And so all of the irritations that come from continuous close contact. And then the problem of some people of being in an abusive situation where they're stuck with someone who is abusive, and while they're stuck and under stay-at-home orders, then of course that's a terrible situation. I've heard of young people, college-age people, young adults, who are lying in their rooms and their apartments on the sofa weeping because they see their future seeming to be taken away from them. The future which they were preparing themselves for through education, through training, through getting a job, etc. They see all of that endangered. Now, it may be that this virus will suddenly decide to disappear and quickly life will come back to normal. But that's not the projection of the best minds who study pandemics. The projection is that there will be a difficult re-entry to normal and that it will take a long time for the economy to resurface. And so I can't say, no one can say, and no one should say to young people who are facing an uncertain future that, oh, don't worry about it. In another couple of weeks, everything will be rosy. Everything will be back to normal. No, we can't even offer that assurance to people. And so there are people who are isolated, people who are lonely, people who are afraid, people who feel disoriented. So let me go through some of these feelings that are natural, because first we have to name them. That may be a common psychological teaching, but it's a common psychological teaching because it's true. That first we have to be able to name things so that we can deal with them, so that we know what we are dealing with. You know, it's interesting that in the Buddhist tradition, where they stress mindfulness meditation, one of the steps in mindfulness meditation is when you're watching your mind, or when you're watching your breathing, or when you're watching the sensations in your body, whatever the field of your mindfulness is, whatever you're trained to watch, you're told when you get a sensation in the body, or when you're breathing, the inhalation and exhalation, just to name that which appears in your awareness. If your breath is short and sudden, name it as short, sudden breath. If your breath is very long and smooth, name it as such. If a stray thought comes and disturbs your awareness, name that stray thought. So even in mindfulness meditation, you're told to name that which appears in the field of your awareness. And so, in modern psychology also, we're told that naming something has great power. And we all know, I've sometimes said here, how if we have some mysterious disease and we go to a doctor, he doesn't understand what it is going on. He sees the symptoms but doesn't understand what is causing it. We go to a specialist, the specialist doesn't know either. And we go from doctor to doctor, no one can tell us what's happening. Finally, we come to a doctor who says, yes, that's a very extremely rare phenomenon. We only know of 3 cases in the world of this particular condition. We don't know what causes it, nor do we yet have a proper treatment for it, but its name is such and such. And the person comes back and feels such relief because it has a name, because it's recognized. As long as something is nameless, and formless, unseen, unknown, ununderstood, we can't feel good about it. But once we have a name, even if we don't know the cause and the cure, we feel relief. Finally I found somebody who knows what it is I have. They don't know how to cure it, they don't know how to cause it, but they know what it is. They recognize it, they've named it. And so first we have to name things. So I would say that one of the first feelings that comes up in this pandemic, when people are locked down, when they're isolated, when they can't go to work. Some of you, of course, are still working, but many of you are not. And so one of the first feelings is disorientation, the feeling of being disoriented, because the usual structure of our life has been removed. Even for those of you who are going to work, there's certainly restrictions on how and what you can do at work and how you can interact with others. And for the rest of us who can't go to work, then there's not even that structure left to our lives. Most people, most adults, not kids, of course, because they haven't started to work, but most adults come quickly to identify themselves with their work and to define themselves by their work. So if I ask you, who are you? Then you tell me, oh, I'm so-and-so. You give me your name. And then I say, well, what else? You say, well, I'm an engineer. Well, tell me something else. Well, I'm a chemical engineer. And then I work at such and such a place. And so very soon when we try to define ourselves, when we try to present ourselves to another person, the fact of our employment comes up, because it's such a defining factor in our life. Or we say, I'm a housewife. I don't work outside the home, but I have plenty to do in the home. I'm busy all the time, busier than my husband, because I take care of the house and the kids and so forth. So that's what I do. That's what defines my life. I've known people who cared for a sick relative, a parent, a sibling, a child, a spouse, maybe for several years. The person needed constant care. And so it was a very, very difficult period where all of their time and attention was spent taking care of the loved one. Then when the loved one died, you think that, well, of course, there'll be sadness because the person has died, but at least on the other hand, there'll be the relief that now I have free time. Now I'm released from that duty which kept me bound day and night. But no, the first feeling is, I don't know what to do with myself. I don't know what to do with myself. My whole life was organized around taking care of this person. And so now not only am I sad because the person is gone that I loved, but I don't know what to do with myself. And so one of the first feelings we feel is disorientation. And in a bit, I'll come to things that we can do to counter these feelings. But first, we have to start with naming the things that come to us. So disorientation. And disorientation, of course, includes confusion, the sense of confusion, that things are not right. And it includes, therefore, the feeling of disharmony. So disorientation includes confusion and disharmony. Everything seems to be out of whack. The world isn't what it's supposed to be. The world is not functioning the way that it was functioning. Everything seems out of whack. And so that sense of disorientation, that's natural. Let me say one other thing before I come to the other elements of our present experience, which are natural to people. And that is that the spiritual solution to these feelings is not to deny them, not to pretend as if I'm not feeling them. No. We have to be honest with ourselves. Sri Ramakrishna used to say that it won't do to say, I am Brahman, I have no body, and to get stuck by a thorn and to say, oh, I have no body. No, you feel the pain. You can say, though in reality I'm not the body, I'm still attached to it, and so I still feel the pain, but let me reinterpret it. But to deny it, you can't do that. We have to be in touch with what we're actually experiencing. And so I tell people when they lose a loved one and they feel grief, And then they feel, well, I'm a spiritual person. I'm trying to be spiritual. I shouldn't feel grief. Death shouldn't matter to me. No, you have to feel that. That's natural. Allow it to allow yourself to experience that which you're actually experiencing. And then we can apply the medicine. But don't deny that which you're actually experiencing. Accept that and then learn to deal with it. And so disorientation. And then, of course, there's, as I've already said, isolation and consequent loneliness, the feeling that we're cut off from the larger life. Yes, we may be cut off with a wife or husband, with children, etc., but we're still cut off, whether we're with a family unit or whether we're by ourselves without a family unit. We feel isolated and alone. Alone with one or two other people, or alone, completely alone, by ourselves, in our homes, in our apartments, in my case, in the temple. And so the feeling of isolation and loneliness, that also is natural. We need to be able to name it. This is what I'm feeling. Then I can deal with it. But first, to recognize it, to own it, as common parlance nowadays, modern parlance has it. Another consequence of this isolation and the pandemic, during this period when we're not even allowed to go to work, is boredom. The feeling of boredom. And so, of course, many people deal with boredom by binge watching Netflix or playing endless rounds of solitaire, computer games, etc., trying to find something to deal with the sense of boredom. And so I won't criticize people's means of dealing with boredom, but let's recognize the fact that when all of the usual emotional supports of our life are taken away, we're going to feel boredom, and we have to find some way to deal with it. Then another factor in our present experience is fear. Fear is quite pervasive now. Having led a spiritual life for the last 50 years and having tried to deal with these emotions in everyday life, fear and boredom and loneliness and so forth, I'm personally quite surprised at how pervasive fear is, because that's not something that I succumb to easily, and I haven't felt it during this pandemic. I haven't had the experience of fear. But even many of our monks and many of our devotees do feel real fear. And so don't feel ashamed of that. If you feel that, then again, be able to name what it is, see it for what it is. Then you can begin to deal with it. But first, if you are feeling fear, then yes, be honest with yourself. You don't have to go out and tell other people, I'm scared to death. That may feel belittling. You don't have to do that. But this, again, is an inner process of naming it for yourself. Yes, I feel afraid. I feel afraid. What if I catch the disease? What if I catch the disease and I can't even have loved ones by my bedside because of social distancing, because of rules of social distancing? And we all heard, of people who died in the hospital from this disease and no loved one was allowed to come near them from the time that they were diagnosed and put in the hospital. They died alone without loved ones. And so that fear, both of death and of dying alone, that, of course, and fear not only of our own death, but fear of the ones we love who may be in danger's way. I know people whose relatives are all in the medical field and who are working in the medical field, who are working now in this pandemic in the medical field. And so naturally they're concerned about their loved ones who are in danger's way, who are in the path of the virus itself. And so that fear is natural. So we have to own that also, to know what is it that I'm experiencing. So fear. And the largest problem of all, but the one that's hardest to recognize and the hardest to deal with in the midst of this crisis is the loss of meaning. The loss of meaning. Because again, for most of us, we orient ourselves with our work, we define ourselves by our work, and we get a sense of meaning in life from what we do. We feel that what we do is not only that which organizes my life, it's that which gives meaning to my life. It's that which gets me up in the morning. In the morning, my alarm goes off. I want to turn it off and just to lie there. I don't feel like getting out of bed, but no, I have to because I have to go to work. And so it's that which gets me up in the morning. It's that which organizes my day. It's that which I think about when I come home. And so most of us get a sense of meaning from our work, from what we do. And so when we can't work, there's a sense of loss of meaning, a sense of the loss of purpose. And so that's the sort of the highest level of the problem. These others are very, very real and more in the forefront of our emotional being right now. But above all of this is the umbrella of the loss of meaning, the sense of purpose. So now let me deal with solutions. I've talked about the trials and tribulations and what those, in general, the trials and tribulations we're facing are as far as our emotional responses, not the particular things that we're dealing with, the actual situations, but the emotional responses that those situations elicit. So if we were established deeply in spiritual life, then we would have all of the tools that we need. We would have everything that we need in order to deal with the present situation. The deeply spiritual people that I've known, and I've known several deeply spiritual people of great illumination. I had that great blessing in my life. Don't think that such people are easy to find, that such people are in great number and that you go to any temple and you're going to meet them. No. It's not that everyone who is a spiritual teacher is such either. They may be good people. They may be people who have progressed on the path and therefore have a legitimate message to teach and can help us. But actually people who are established deeply in spiritual life, they are rare. And so what I saw among those whom I had the great blessing to meet and associate with early in my spiritual life was that one thing is that they are unflappable. They're unflappable. Whatever happens in life, they meet it with a calm dignity. They're unflappable. They're unshockable. There are many people who come to a person like myself, to a man or woman of the cloth, as they say, and they want to confess something. We don't have formal confession like in the Roman Catholic tradition, though that's a good thing, but we don't have formal confession. But people sometimes come and want to confess something about their life. They want to tell something. They want to get the relief of having expressed to somebody that will understand something that they've done that they're very ashamed of. And so many people are afraid that they're going to shock a person like me who's lived a retired and retiring and somewhat isolated life. But no, a deeply spiritual person is unshockable. They're unshockable because they've plumbed the depths of human nature. They know what human nature contains, and they know the possibilities of human nature, the good and the bad in human nature. And so a deeply spiritual person is unshockable. A person who is easily shocked, easily offended, don't trust them. Don't trust them. They may be good people. They may be innocent enough, but they can't be trusted because they have not plumbed their own depths. They haven't known themselves. So a deeply spiritual person is unflappable, that is unshakable. They're unshockable. Nothing shocks them. They've known the highs and the lows of life. And third, they are centered in something which gives them a deep dignity and a inner silence. A deep dignity and inner silence, so that when we go in front of them, sometimes we feel nervous just because they are so steady. Suddenly our own shakiness comes to the fore in our own minds. We become conscious of it just in the presence of their steadiness and the sense that they are so centered in something which is real, which is eternal, which is timeless, which is steady. And so if we were established deeply in spiritual life, then the present crisis presents us no crisis at all. We wouldn't be shocked by it. We wouldn't be moved by it, that is, we're unflappable, and we would be centered in that which we're always centered in. And the world would spin around us, but we would be in the eye of the storm. Why is that important to know? That's important to know because that's where we want to be. No, we're not there yet. We're not there yet. But if we're going to go on a journey, we have to know where it is we're going. That's where we want to be. That's what we want to get to. And so our whole life should be a preparation for times like this. And the sad truth is, but the real truth is, that the vast majority of humankind, that's not what they've prepared themselves. This is not what they've prepared themselves for. They've only prepared themselves for work, for family life, for staying out of jail, for making money to pay the bills and so forth. Yes, all of those things we have to do, but that's not enough. So let this opportunity show us that there's something else we have to do. So now, what about ordinary people like ourselves? Well, first, we don't start with meaning. In normal times, yes, we can begin with meaning. We can try to understand what the meaning of life is and try to go deeper into that sense of meaning and purpose, trying to understand what is the real purpose of life beyond all of the smaller things that we do in life, getting a job, having a family, having fun, being happy, etc. All of those are fine. But those are small purposes. Those are not the overriding purpose of life. So after this is over, then let us remember that, no, I have to have a deep sense of the eternal purpose of life. But no matter what the circumstances of life, that's still the purpose. And that's never taken away from me. Even in the midst of the greatest tragedy, that's still the purpose of my life. So let me hold on to that. But right now, let's start at the edges of our life, where we're actually feeling the most impact on our life. So the first thing that we need to do in making an opportunity out of this tragedy is to establish some order in our lives. As I said, one of the first feelings that we have in the present situation is disorientation. Disorientation leading to confusion and disharmony. And so the first thing that we need to do is to establish some order in our lives. Learn to organize your time. Learn to organize your day. You know, in the Hindu tradition, there was the ancient tradition, which some people still follow, of the 4 ashramas, the 4 stages of life. You begin life as a student. Even as an infant, you're learning. And then you enter into the formal stage of a student when you actually begin your education. So the stage of a student, the stage of a householder when you begin a family, if you wish to have a family. You begin your career if you wish to have a career, etc. And then the third stage is a stage of the vanaprastha, the stage of retirement from the world. And so this right now is a forced vanaprastha stage. So many of us, when we come to retirement, we become even busier than we were before. That is because we can't sit still, and so we engage ourselves in all kinds of things. Well, that's okay. it's better to do something than to vegetate. So there's nothing wrong with being busy. That's much better than just sitting around having nothing to do and feeling bored, or just watching endless Netflix or something because there's nothing else to do. But higher than busyness is learning to organize our time so that it has a spiritual core, so that it's leading me forward spiritually. To look on the stage of retirement as a chance to deepen my spiritual life. And so if I need to be busy, let me be busy with volunteering at a temple, helping with religious activities, with religious ceremonies and so forth, with spiritual reading and so forth. So whether we are retirement age or actually retired or not, this is a period of enforced retreat. So those of you who are still active in the workplace, for you it's a time of retreat. And for others, it's a time of intensifying their retirement. So learn to organize your day and organize it among periods of meditation, japa and meditation, prayer, worship. That is prayer, worship, meditation, japa. All of these things is one part of your day. Another part, spiritual reading. Don't punish yourself with these things. That is, don't think that, well, spiritual reading means I have to read the most boring spiritual book in the world. Let me take up the study of the Brahma Sutras. No. Brahma Sutras are wonderful. And some of us find great joy in studying the Brahma Sutras. But for most people, they're deadly boring. Not unimportant, but for the average person, deadly boring. That's not where you start. So read spiritual books that you enjoy reading. Don't try to punish yourself by doing too much meditation so that you feel miserable, or reading boring books because you think that that's what you should be doing. No, there are many spiritual books which are a joy to read. That was the whole purpose of the Puranas and the Itihasas, the Puranas and like the Srimad Bhagavatam and the Ramayana, the Mahabharata, etc. So spiritual practice, reading and study, and then do some work. Work is important, even if you're retired. Do some things. If it's just cleaning the house. I saw a joke on the internet the other day that said, we are all so bored now in the midst of stay-at-home orders that by the end of this, everyone is going to know how to fold fitted sheets. That is, the sheets that have elastic on the bottom that you put over the mattress. Those are impossible to fold neatly. They always end up just in a mess. But there is a way to fold them. And so this person said, we're all so bored that we're going to end up knowing how to fold fitted sheets because we have nothing else to do. So work is important. If you want to learn how to fold a fitted sheet, then now is the time to do it. Learn how to do it now. But do something, whether it's cleaning, whether it's knitting, whether it's sewing, whether it's gardening, whether it's exercising in your home, going out in the neighborhood and walking, practicing social distancing, of course, but walking, doing yoga asanas and so forth. In the Christian monastic tradition, they realized early on that manual labor has a great part to play in spiritual life. It keeps the mind healthy. And so that's something that we can learn in the Hindu tradition. And I know many swamis, old swamis, who when they retired, they would spend part of their day every day puttering in the garden because it keeps the mind healthy. And so don't think that a retreat life or retired life means, or a vanaprastha life means that you just sit and do japa all the time. No, you can't do that. Rare is the person who can do that for many, many hours a day. So do what you can fruitfully do, then spend more time in spiritual reading, spend some in work, and spend some in service. Right now, you may not be able to serve much because of the relative lockdown. In some places, a strict lockdown, in other places, a relative lockdown. But even then, there are people who are spending their time making masks for other people who don't have masks, the things that you can do. Even just spending some time every day calling friends that you're close to who would appreciate a call. Some people feel bothered by getting phone calls, so don't call them. But there are other people who would be so grateful just for a phone call to let them know that somebody is thinking of them. So some service activity. These are the ways in which to counteract the disorientation that we feel. And the sense of isolation and loneliness, we need to feel connected. And so there are two main ways of doing that. One is the horizontal way, connecting with the world around us. And the other is the vertical way, that is connecting with God, who is the soul of all souls. So the first, the horizontal way, just by spending some time every day during our meditation or at other times, just sitting and sending out thoughts of goodwill towards all beings. May all beings everywhere be happy. May all be freed from disease. May none be subject to misery. Just let those thoughts go out as a blessing on the whole world. And you'll feel the sense of loneliness and isolation washing away from you. Just by wishing well to others, you've cut through the isolation and the loneliness. Doing something for others, you'll feel connected. And then in the transcendental sense, thinking of God, praying to God, you're connecting yourself to the universal, the soul of all souls. The soul of all souls. So in that way, we get a sense of connection. And then boredom. If you're feeling bored, force yourself, push yourself into activity. One of the problems with depression and with boredom is that they are somewhat self-sustaining. I remember when I was a kid, and I would be longing for, I hated elementary school. I just hated it. It was a torture for me. It wasn't until I got to the 8th grade that I fell in love with school, because they started dealing with abstract things. But elementary school is meant to be concrete, and I hated it. And so I would dream of the day when when summer vacation would begin and I'd be out of school. So finally it would come, the great day, and I was liberated from this torture of school. And so then the next day, the first day, I was seeing friends and things. And the next day, a friend would come over and we'd sit on the back steps, hands on our chin like that. And just one of us would say, "What do you want to do?" "I don't know. What do you want to do?" "I don't know. What do you want to do?" We're bored to death. My mother would come out and would say, "Mom, I'm bored." Say, "Well, why don't you do such and such? Do such and such," and give her suggestions. "No, I don't want to do that. I don't want to do that." No. So the way to get out of boredom is to push yourself to do something. You're bored because you can't do the normal things you do. Well, find something else to do. Push yourself. You have to force yourself to get out of boredom, just as you have to push yourself to get out of depression. Depression is self-sustaining, and boredom is self-sustaining. So push yourself out of boredom. And then fear. Fear only goes if we begin to feel connected to something which is larger. If we begin to feel connected to the divine, if we're on the path of knowledge, we begin to feel connected we begin to feel identified with the self, that which is deathless, that within me which is deathless. Or if I'm on a devotional path, which is much easier for most, to connect myself to the divine. Perfect love casteth out fear, as St. Paul says in the Christian Bible. Perfect love casteth out fear. And so through the love of God, we find that we overcome fear. And then time is running out. Let me say one more thing, and then I'll come to meaning, and then close with that. One more thing on the smaller problems that we're facing, like disorientation, but those that are more immediate. We have to learn to. Well, no. Let me come to the meaning itself, because this will fit better within the discussion of meaning. So I'll end with a short discussion of meaning. Our philosophy of life That is, the philosophy which guides our life, not the philosophy as an academic exercise that's out there in the books, but the way that we see life. Our philosophy of life has to be large enough that it makes room for experiences like our present experience. We have to have a philosophy of life which recognizes life as it is, not as we think it should be. Oh, why does God allow things like this? Or why does God do this? Forget about why God is doing something. God doesn't do anything. God is love itself. God is the intelligence itself, out of which this whole universe springs. But it's not that God is sitting somewhere moving people like marionettes and making diseases in his laboratory and casting them on humanity because he's upset about something. No, that's a very low idea of God, where God is punishing people and God is doing things to people. No. So forget about why God is doing things. We don't know why the virus has come. It's come. That's enough. We just have to deal with it. But my sense of philosophy of life, my understanding of life has to be large enough to encompass the experiences of such things. I have to learn to accept life as it is, to accept life as it is. And if I do that, if I accept life as it is, life as it comes to me day by day, then I find that these other problems, they begin to go away, because I've begun to find meaning in facing life as it is. Yes, there's a higher meaning even than that, and that is that the meaning and purpose of life is to know reality, know what is, that which is. But part of coming there is learning to accept that which is in my ordinary experience. Then I'll find that which is beyond my ordinary experience, which explains everything, which harmonizes everything. But on the way to that, I have to learn how to accept life as it is, to take it as it is. When there is a lockdown order, when there is enforced social distancing, that's a fact. Let me not fight it. What good does it do to fight it? Let me deal with it. Let me learn how to deal with it. Let me learn how to creatively meet every experience that I have and everything that I have to face. In 12-step programs, various types, it started with Alcoholics Anonymous, but there are other types of 12-step programs for other types of problems now. But they have a saying which is common: one day at a time. And so that is a good maxim for spiritual life, one day at a time. That is, and that's the teaching of Jesus in the Christian Bible, that sufficient unto the day is the evil thereof. That is, that the problems of today are enough. I don't need to be worrying about what's coming tomorrow. Let me just face situations as they arise. Let me deal with them as they arise. And if we do that, we find that we can get through anything. Everything in life we can face. Nothing is as bad as our imagination of it is. Even the worst experiences in life, when we actually have to face them, when they actually come to us, we find that yes, they may be difficult, they may be sad, they may be hurtful, but they're not as bad as our imagination. Our imagination makes them far worse than the actual experience itself. So let me learn the art of facing life as it is, that which is. Because behind the situations in life is that which is itself, that which doesn't change, the real, which is manifesting as all of this, but which itself never changes. And it's that we want to get to. And along the way, by practicing the art of dealing with situations as they arise, and just dealing with the situation in the best way that we can. And eventually we can learn how to deal with situations from a spiritual standpoint. And then we're coming closer to the experience of that which is beyond the situation itself. That is, that which is the reality in which this whole universe is appearing, but which is unaffected by the universe. That which is existence itself, which is consciousness itself, knowledge itself, and which is bliss itself. So with that, I will end today's talk. And before I give the closing chant, let me say that we will be live streaming all of our usual classes and lectures from now on. Tuesday classes on the Bhagavad Gita at 7:30 in the evening. Thursday morning classes on the Gospel of Sri Ramakrishna at 11 a.m. And we may start at some point live streaming guided meditations as well. That I'll hold off on for a while until we're more comfortable just with the classes, but eventually we'll try to start that as well. And so, of course, these are open to everyone. I'm sorry that because the camera is way over there and the laptop monitor is way over there, I can't see if there are any questions. But hopefully we'll be able to arrange things eventually so that as long as we have to do the live streaming, I'll be able to see if people have questions and they want to post questions, and I'll be able to answer them in live time. So with that, I will close wishing everyone all of the best and learn to make an opportunity out of the difficulties that we're presently facing. That we don't need to take it as a tragedy. We need to take it as an opportunity. And no, let me end on this note, which is an even better note to end on. That for those of us who are devoted to the Ramakrishna tradition, then we have come to know that yes, the sun may be setting right now. It may seem like it's setting. The world as we know it is undergoing changes. But eventually the sun is going to rise, that the sun is rising. Swami Vivekananda said that with the birth of Sri Ramakrishna, the golden age was beginning. First, the old age has to end, and that ends with great difficulties. But for us, we're looking to the dawn, and the dawn is that which we know is coming. And so in that we can take great cheer and great consolation. So. Om Purnamadah Purnamidam Purnat Purnamudachyate Purnasya Purnamadaya Purnamevavashishyate. Om Shanti Shanti Shanti. Harihi Om Tat Sat. That infinite reality is full, perfect, and complete. This relative universe is full, perfect, and complete. From out of the fullness of that infinite being, the fullness of this universe has come. And yet that being remains ever the same. Om, peace, peace, peace be unto us and to all the beings of the universe.